Mr. Srivastava, one car, your favorite, money, no bar, just one car if you could have one.
Actually, it is the Audi Quattro.
One Maruti Suzuki car which you think wasn't right for its time or should have been launched differently.
For me, if it's if it was
Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second episode of Driversation. It's been a while, but this episode is definitely going to be worth it. Now, for Driversation, typically we need three things on the checklist. We need a car in which we'll have the conversation, an industry captain with whom we'll have the conversation, and of course me who will be driving the car. So, with one thing checked out of the list, let's move to the second item on the checklist, and that is the industry captain. And we have with us here today Mr. Shashank Srivastava, who is the Executive Director in Maruti Suzuki India Limited for Sales and Marketing. So that brings us, Mr. Srivastava, to the third checklist on our episode, and that's the car. And as you can see, it's the all-new Maruti Suzuki Vitara Brezza. So, Mr. Srivastava, shall we?
Yes, why not?
So, Mr. Srivastava, well, of course, now that we are in the new Brezza, this is going to be the center of discussion for us. But before we come to the Brezza, one of the things that everyone is intrigued by is when Maruti Suzuki said they are going to exit diesel.
Yes.
And now even Brezza, which has suddenly gone from an all diesel to an all petrol.
Yeah.
Now a lot of people are thinking that this could have an impact on a negative impact on Maruti's market share. What are your thoughts on this?
Basically, the answer to this question, before I come to the specifics,
right,
we have to see a brief background of how the industry has been moving as far as the fuel choice is concerned. So just about 7-8 years back in 2011-12, the industry had 60% diesel and 40% was petrol. However, that time, if you remember, the price difference between 1 liter of fuel for diesel or petrol was about 32 rupees. It's been coming down substantially, and right now the average is about 5 rupees. Yes. There are of course places where it is 7 rupees, like in Delhi, but there are also in states like Goa, for example, where we are at the moment, right, where sometimes the diesel is more expensive than petrol. So the dynamics and the economics is therefore quite different now. As a result, if you see the current year, the diesel percentage has fallen to just under 30%. And I think this trend is there to stay for a long time, basically because of this fuel price gap being reduced, and also because now the diesel vehicles in BS6 are much more pricier. So it doesn't make economic sense now, especially in the smaller diesel category, for anybody to go in opt for a diesel vehicle. So we are quite confident in the smaller diesel category. There is going to be, this market is going to disappear for diesel, and it's only in the larger diesel category that we need to still look out of whether there is a demand which will continue. Remember, for Maruti Suzuki, the percentage of diesel is even less than what the industry is. So industry right now is about 30% this year. Maruti Suzuki is less than 20%. So the dynamics, the economics both seem to be indicating that the petrol will be the fuel of choice for the future.
Definitely, makes sense. So now coming to Vitara Brezza.
Yeah.
Now Vitara Brezza, like I just said, going from an all diesel to all petrol portfolio.
Yes.
Ever since the car came out, it had a dominating leadership position.
Yes.
You still see that happening?
Yes, most definitely. Yeah. You're right. It has been dominating right from the time when we introduced this product, yeah, which was in 2016. If you look at the portfolio of the small SUVs today, a lot of this shift has already happened to petrol. So for Venue, for example, a large percentage of their sales is in petrol. True. Even Kia Seltos in the mid SUV category, or the Creta, as also the MG Hector. MG Hector, actually more than 70% booking is petrol. So even in the SUV, mid SUV, small SUV category, the shift is clearly towards petrol. and that's what we are going to have in the case of Brezza as well. And I'm sure that the numbers actually should exceed the diesel numbers. This is our estimate.
Okay, great. And now one other big change in the Brezza model variant lineup has been that from an AMT, which was the earlier automatic option, you've gone to a torque converter 4-speed.
Correct.
And I mean, the 4-speed has been around for a while. By when can we expect a new automatic transmission from Maruti Suzuki? Because
so this has always been a point of discussion, especially for guys like you and or some of the more evolved consumers. But the whole thing is a balance. So if you see with the AMT version, we had the AMT version, and a lot of feedback came from consumers saying that you should have a proper torque converter, and also that but the point is that we also need to see the value equation. So while there are some connoisseurs and some more evolved consumers who are actually looking for a high level of experience of AT, but then it's actually also has to be seen in terms of what the price of the vehicle would be. And in that sense, I think we have struck a balance. In fact, our AT option is available only in the top end rather than towards the lower end, because there is a price sensitive consumers even in the small SUV category.
Okay, all right. And at the expo, when you showcased the Brezza, the new Brezza, you also showcased the updated Ignis.
Yes, that's right.
How has the response been to Ignis after the updates have come in? Although it's
and the Brezza, of course, you would like to know.
And the Brezza, that was
So when we unveiled the Ignis as also the Brezza at the Auto Expo in the early part of this month, actually we did not reveal the prices. So we did unveil it because it was a very big forum, and it got us a lot of eyeballs. The prices we announced for Brezza, for example, only this week. On Monday we announced the price, and for Ignis last week. The response after that, we think, has become extremely good for Brezza. For example, in Brezza, we already have crossed the 10,000 booking mark already. Some of the bookings, of course, came even before the price. Not so many, maybe about 3,000 of them would have come before the price announcement. Ignis, we have so far about 1,500 bookings, and we would have loved to have more bookings than that.
By when do you see a Maruti electric? What's Maruti Suzuki's approach
philosophy,
to electric?
So let me give you a detailed answer to that, because I think that's the most common question that we have been asked in the Auto Expo and after. So basically, the technology exists. We can bring a vehicle quickly. As you know, we are testing 50 cars already on the road for almost a year now, collecting technical data. But it's not just about bringing a vehicle quickly. We also have a philosophy where we have to see consumer preference and consumer convenience. Second is we have to see that there has to be a scale. And third, we must ensure that there is a practical and a business sense. So on the first, like consumer convenience, we are very clear that at this time the infrastructure for charging is just not there in our country at the moment, and there would be a lot of inconvenience to consumers should anybody purchase the electric vehicle. That's one. Second, the current battery technology is not current battery is very expensive. As you know, electric vehicles, about 40-50% of the cost of the vehicle is battery itself. And the battery is so expensive at this time that it's probably the price of the electric vehicle will be pretty high, as you can see from some of the other manufacturers who have launched the vehicle. Third is that there is this range anxiety, which is the amount of kilometers run for every charge, which seems to also be a big thing in consumer mind. And I think that is what is preventing the development of EVs market, not only in our country, but in fact across the world. Across the world, as you know, just about 1% of the sales is electric vehicles, even though they have better infrastructure. So whether it comes to price or whether it comes to the convenience of charging, there is this issue and the range anxiety. There is this issue of consumer, being inconvenienced at this moment. And scale also is because of all these factors. The scale has to make sense.
Right.
And our approach is that for a long time, the electric vehicles to be to have a larger share of the market will take a lot of time.
Right.
And in fact, the estimates made by experts is that about 7% to 8% of the vehicles till 2030 will be electric. Now, if you look at a CAGR of 8% from today till 2030, which means about 70 million cars will be sold in the country, out of which even if say 10% is electric vehicles, the 65 million cars will still be ICE engines. So we believe that we need to do something in this intermediate period for these whole lot of vehicles, 65 million of them. And the technologies which we focused on and we expressed in the Auto Expo was, one was CNG, second was smart hybrid, and the third was the strong hybrid, which we showcased the technology at the Auto Expo.
2019 was really bad for the industry, for the automotive industry. For some manufacturers, it turned out to be a really bloodbath.
Yes.
How do you see the year panning out for Maruti and overall from an industry perspective?
Yes. So if you see the signs of the slowdown were there since August 2018. You know, so it was. However, we till that time we had seen 4 or 5 years of very positive growth. The industry therefore kept on taking vehicles and manufacturers kept on pushing vehicles in the pipeline, and therefore you didn't feel the actual effect of the slowdown till it was this year beginning. H1 was really bad, 18% minus for the industry, similar for Maruti, although we could maintain our 50% market share. However, in volumes we were also negative. Q3 has been much better. Maruti has shown a positive growth as also in January. The industry is still negative. So we are quite optimistic going by the last 4 or 5 months of trend for the future. But as I say, we are also very cautious because some of the factors, most of the factors which actually brought the slowdown in the first place are still there. So we are looking with some mix of caution and optimism for the future. And in the next year, the industry projections by economists and also by a panel of the industry experts seems to be indicating a growth of about 3 to 5%. And SUVs growth being a slightly higher, ranging from 4 to 7%, and the passenger car growth to be a little lower, on an average 3 to 5%. And I think that's what the industry is preparing for. And we could still have what I call tale of two halves. The first half could be, recovery may not be full, but the second half could be much better.
Okay, brilliant. Trying to lighten up a bit. We are in Goa.
Okay.
So, Mr. Srivastava, one car, your favorite, money, no bar, just one car, if you could have one. One car in the world.
Actually, it is the Audi Quattro. That's the one which I always had some fascination for.
Okay.
That's it. Of course, it's very expensive. So I don't think I'm going to have one in my lifetime.
Okay. One favorite, which is your favorite Maruti Suzuki car, a Maruti Suzuki or a Suzuki, one car that really stands out for you?
All cars are great, fantastic.
I did see that coming. I definitely expect
all cars are great, and I, over my last 25-30 years with Maruti Suzuki, I have driven actually almost all the cars.
Yes.
From 800 to Omni to Gypsy to Zen to the older Baleno, the Esteem, and all of those cars I've had for a long time, driven long distances. So I loved almost all the cars. But if you ask me for the current favorite, it is the Ciaz for me, because it's something which is like for great for city and for taking me around, and for office as well as for other.
And lots of space at the back.
Yes, so it's it's in good space, as we call it. So yeah.
Now, being in charge of sales and marketing for Maruti Suzuki, being the executive director, very serious job, lots of responsibilities. But if you were not doing this, if you had it your way, what would you be doing in life?
Maybe, not for a job, I would say, but just saying, relaxing on the Goa beach is one good option. However, seriously, maybe writing a book, maybe, or I'm very fond of trekking as well. So going to some exotic places, I would really love to do that if I had more time than what we have now.
Yeah. I'm sure that.
Yes.
A slightly tricky question, Mr. Srivastava. One Maruti Suzuki car which you think wasn't right for its time or should have been launched differently, basically didn't click, things could have been different. What is that car according to you?
Well, I think yes. Obviously, it's a tough question to answer. But really, if you look at, for me, if it was an Ignis, I thought it was slightly ahead in terms of its design. It's a slightly more. It's a different design car, and it requires some sort of a consumer acceptance over a period of time.
Right.
But that was, I believe, one of the models where probably slightly ahead of the time.
Okay.
But the one which we have launched now, which is more SUV-ish, it's I think much more acceptable.
Okay.
And going forward, I think this design will become more mainstream, and that should give us more volumes than what we have currently.
Alright, okay. Brilliant. So there you have it, guys. I had a great time talking to Mr. Srivastava, and I am sure seeing this you would have had a lot of fun and got some great insights into what Maruti Suzuki is doing. And till the next episode of Driversation, drive safe and obey all traffic rules.